All right. Hi, Jensen.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Basha. Very glad to have you on our series of talks in conjunction with the World Hearing Day. And World Hearing Day is by the World Health Organization and is on the 3rd of March. We just passed. And so we will continue our series of 8 talks on hearing awareness and changing mindsets. Here with me this afternoon is Dr. Basha Othman, and she will talk about series on oral rehabilitation. And so hearing loss and oral rehabilitation go hand in hand. We do realize that hearing loss is not just about buying a hearing aid. And so we are glad to have the speech therapist this afternoon to address the issue. And we will share her presentation, which she did at the recent Hearing and Balance Conference, which was very well attended. And we thought it's good to share some highlights from her talk. And so as we get the slides prepared, we will hand the time over to Dr. Bashariatul Othman to introduce a little of herself.
Thank you very much, Jensen, my fellow colleague, my fellow friend, and someone whom I have known since university years. And Assalamualaikum and hello out there to everyone who's watching this. I'm Basha. Mostly people call me Dr. Basha. And I'm a speech therapist who has specialized in the field of hearing loss in the past 23 years, I think, because I started studying when I was 10 years old. Yes, hearing loss is my passion. Even though I work mostly with children, I do have about 15% of my caseloads of adults, adults wearing hearing aids, adults wearing cochlear implant, adults not wearing any device, but they start to have mild hearing loss and learning the strategies to cope with listening in challenging situations. So those are the things that I'm sharing today. And I know that Jensen said that I'm sharing slides from a plenary presentation that I did recently at Hearing and Balance Conference 2024, but I will not be presenting it to a professional audience today. I will be presenting it more for public, more for laymen. Yeah, right? That's what we want to do, right, Jensen?
Yeah, so MESH, the Malaysian Association of Speech and Hearing, the association that represents audiologists and speech therapists in Malaysia, we felt the importance of doing this series to educate the public on the importance of hearing loss in the lives of both young and old. And especially this afternoon, we are addressing the elderly.
Okay, so do we know that actually there's over 1.5 billion people worldwide who are affected by hearing loss? Okay, and out of this, nearly 1 out of 3 would need hearing care. But the majority of them live in low-income countries or middle-income countries. And that is the unfortunate fact, because we know that hearing loss need a device and device needs money, but the majority of those who need this device, they are in either low or middle-income countries. And that's what we are facing right now. I think for someone who's facing hearing loss, these are the things that they are facing every day. Sometimes they try to come closer, that's under behavioral response, to where the sound is, and they try to look very closely, and sometimes they try to mask that they are not hearing, so they pretend, they nod their head and say yeah, when actually they don't understand what's going on. And then they also have reasoning. They will say, oh, it's hard to hear because the person mumble. Okay, Jensen, you agree with me? That's a very textbook thing, right?
Yes, certainly, because what we see in practice is oftentimes those with hearing loss don't admit they have one. And so they have actually interesting behaviors that actually, as Dr. Basha mentioned, mask their hearing problem. One of it I would like to say is If you notice someone speaking continuously without allowing you any gaps to ask questions, that is actually a sign of hearing loss. Why? Because when they keep talking and talking and talking and talking, and you don't have any input, they don't have a hearing loss. But the moment they pause and you jump in with a question, then they have to struggle to hear you and to guess, and they don't want that situation because they will have difficulty and their problem will be seen clearly. So what they do is they do fillers and they keep talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, when in fact they actually have a hearing loss and are trying to conceal it. So that's a very interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, controlling the conversation so
Ah,
that
yes.
they can have the upper hand of the interaction, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and by doing so, the impact on that individual, their social life, emotionally, even physically, the things that their physical activities that they used to do together, like for example, they like to like do jogging together, but it's no longer an enjoyable thing, because while running in a place where probably it's a little bit noisy, you cannot jog and chat at the same time, because there are two things that are not too compatible when you have hearing loss, and therefore the overall quality of life. And I think we see that, right, in our practice every day.
Yes. So oftentimes it is the hearing loss does not just affect the individual, but actually those around them. They often
That
say, I have a hearing loss, but actually those who are suffering are those around them, because they have to raise their voice, they have to increase their loudness, then they get angry when actually, in actual fact, they are just using more energy to speak, and then they will get very frustrated because they have to keep repeating themselves, and in the end, they forgot what they wanted to say in the first place. So
yeah.
those are the effects of hearing loss, not just affecting the individual, but all those around. So the inconvenience is caused to the people all around them. And so it
Yeah.
does not just affect the individual.
Mm. That's why it's called third party disability.
Oh, okay. I learned a new word.
Yeah,
Third
that is
party
an actual
disability.
term. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not just the person who has hearing loss. Whoever who lives with them, their significant others, their family members. Like you said, you need to strain their voice. Well, my mother has moderate to severe hearing loss bilaterally. I can no longer watch TV together with her
Why not?
because when she couldn't hear well, what did she do with the volume? She cranked it up. And that's too much for me. I just can't watch it because it's so uncomfortably loud. I no longer watch TV with her, which was something that I enjoyed doing with her. So things like that. So the lifestyle, what they used to participate, what their family members used to participate with the person is also affected, and risk to safety. Because they can't hear the sounds that may be an alarm signal or sounds of somebody trying to cut into their padlock, for example, or their door grill and things like that. They won't be able to hear, especially if it's high frequency. And I think we often found it's the high frequency for elderlies, isn't it? The high frequencies that go first. Is there any theory on that, on why high frequencies that are often affected?
The hearing loss affects mostly of the high frequencies due to the noise exposure, even at market levels when it's above 80 decibels over a long period of time. So the hair cells get damaged. So they would hear you, but they don't understand what you're speaking. So when you start to lose the clarity of voice, that's a sign of hearing loss. And most of the time, if we try and ignore it, so we will end up with more and more hearing loss because the brain does not get enough input. And when you lose the high frequencies, you lose directionality as well. So when you want to know where the source of sound is coming from, you need a lot of high frequency information. Like when you talk about speech, when you understand speech, you need the suprasegmentals, the little sounds that you don't really notice it until you have a hearing loss. And also safety, when you're driving, you hear a horn, but you can't tell whether it's left or right. And That's something to be very concerned of when you have hearing loss. Hearing loss is not just about, I don't hear so well, so it doesn't matter. We hope that by listening with us in a few more minutes, you will understand why hearing is so important even in aging. Over to you, Dr.
Yeah.
Basha.
Okay, so we have painted like the whole picture of the listening difficulties, because for people who have typical hearing, normal level hearing, you may not be able to, I wouldn't use the word appreciate, but more maybe empathize, isn't it? The extent of the effect or the impact of the difficulties of a person suffering from this. Let's talk about the aspect of dementia a bit. I don't know, Jensen, do you think you can zoom in a bit on the graph? Do you agree, just say yes or no, that it's a very natural process once you become an elderly, you'll have dementia? It's just a natural occurrence thing that will come together with being old. Yes or no?
People seem to say
Nowadays.
when you're older, you will get dementia, but I don't think it's true.
Exactly. It's not true. It's true to an extent that we are no longer at the peak of our intelligence. Some studies said the peak of the cognitive function is around 35 to 40. After 40, it starts to decline. But that doesn't mean that we have dementia. Come on, this body is like a machine, right? A 40-year-old car won't be the same as in like a 1-year-old car, isn't it? But being old does not equate having dementia. Especially kalau dalam budaya Melayu, in the Malay culture, the word that we use for dementia is nyanyuk, which has a lot of connotation in it. Nyanyuk, it's not just about being forgetful. It's also about being like a child again, being unable to do your DLA, daily life activities. When I said being old does not equate with having dementia, it is because there are a lot of things starting from the beginning of our life right until the geriatric level of life. There are a lot of factors that will contribute to having dementia. And starting from midlife, especially if you look at the one behind us, obesity, taking excessive alcohol, having hypertension, having traumatic brain injury, and especially hearing loss, which is like the largest factor that is contributing to the possibility of having dementia later. Hearing loss, the biggest and yet the most modifiable. Because I will talk about this in our next slide. Why did I say that hearing loss is the most modifiable one? Because in the US, they have done this study. They find that in warga emas or senior citizens who are at increased risk of the decline in their cognition, and they have hearing loss, if their hearing loss is intervened, meaning they are given device and they wear their device as advised by their audiologist, the loss of their cognitive process and the loss of the memory abilities can be slowed down by 48% over 3 years.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's nearly 50%. That's nearly by half. You can like put a brake on it. It will happen. Like you cannot say, okay, it will 100% be stopped. No, but you can recover more years of meaningful, high quality living. But you know what the problem is, Jensen?
When they don't wear the hearing aids?
when they don't wear the hearing aids, they don't even want to go and see audiologists. And when they see audiologists and we ask them, why are you here? And we ask this makcik lah, this nini ke makcik lah. Okay. Makcik datang hari ni, kenapa? Why are you here today, makcik? And what would they say, Jensen?
Saya pun tak tahu. Anak saya suruh datang. Saya kata saya dengar. Mereka cakap saya tak dengar. Yang masalah mereka cakap perlahan. Bukan saya tak dengar pun.
Betul. Exactly that. Exactly that. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is quite an average number of years. Several studies in internationally, they found either 7 to 9 years is the average time from diagnosis to acceptance of device to those who accept device.
Yes, that's about right. I have people coming in and 5 years later, they come back again. Then only they will wear their hearing aids. But it doesn't happen all the time. And we hope that people will realize that this is so important, not just to solve a hearing problem, but this is about cognition, it's about aging in quality of life.
Yes. And imagine if this was not delayed, if the acceptance to wearing the hearing aid was not delayed, the first 3 years of them wearing it after the diagnosis, their loss of thinking and loss of memory abilities could have been slowed down by 48%. And that's the time lost that we would never get back. Sayang kan?
Yes, years wasted because of not accepting the help that is available.
Yes. And I think this is where we want to call for action. We try to change the mindset that hearing aids is just like this. I think I rarely see anybody except for maybe a very young social media influencer probably who do not want to wear glasses because they think they look different, they look having a handicap. This is normalized, right? The glasses. Let's normalize hearing aids. So I hope that this will help for those who are hearing. I'm not sure how many of you are actually the person who are the third party who have the disability because you live with someone with hearing loss. Or you probably yourself are beginning to realize or have been diagnosed with hearing loss. But we just hope that our sharing, both Jensen and I today, would help in terms of the changing the mindset about being old does not equate dementia. But if you have hearing loss, that needs to be tackled because we can put a brake and slow down the dementia.
We'd like to thank Dr. Basha for her time and her expertise in sharing her knowledge with us this afternoon. And we trust that you will think differently this time around when you hear about hearing loss. Do contact your speech therapist or your audiologist for further information. And you can always go to the MASH website, www.mash.org.my, the Malaysian Association of Speech, Language and Hearing. Once again, thank you very much for joining us in our series for better hearing, changing mindsets in conjunction with World Hearing Day 2024. See you around. Bye.
Bye.